Welcome to Pull or Pass After Dark, Episode 2. I'm Zach, and this week I interviewed artist and writer Steve Horry to discuss his upcoming project and his recent series Lizard Men, as well as all things comics. Let's dive in. Thank you for joining me here today to talk about all of the Steve Horry comics. How are you? How's things?
Yeah, all right, mate. All right. Busy, ridiculously busy. I'm up against deadlines at the moment, which is slightly scary. But we're talking about comics, but I'm writing a piece of prose for a charity Doctor Who anthology, and
that's cool within itself.
Well, I'm not sure it's cool, but it's Doctor Who, and I was never going to say no to it. It's an ambition I've had since I was 8 years old. Can tick that one off.
That's really good. I mean, Doctor Who is one of the first things I think of with you. So it's kind of Doctor Who and Suede, and it's about it, really. Those are the two immediate things.
Yeah, basically. That's pretty much anyone who's ever spoken to me at any point in the last 20 years probably says the same.
No, that is really cool, though. So I've been I did a little bit of a Steve Horry retrospective. To prepare, I've read through all the Lizard Man. I reread Double D. I read all the bits of chalk that are in the comic house. The individual issues. I listened to the bit of 586 that's on Spotify as well, just in case.
Yeah.
It's been a real week, So I was going to open with Lizard Man wrapped up earlier this year. How does it feel? It's a finished series, all kickstarted and all done through a small group of you, and might portray an even better political landscape than we actually have. So
yeah, it's quite funny. There was when I was writing it, there was loads of stuff where I thought, haha, this is really daft. I'll put that in, and then real life went and trumped it. But yeah, no, it's really nice to have it done. Actually, it was. I've made a point of not reading it or looking at it for the last sort of 6 months. So around about Christmas, I'm going to have a look and see how it stacks up. But it was really nice to have that because we were working on it pretty much. Katia who did the art was doing it full time for a while, and it was really nice to have all those pages coming in all the time. And it's quite nice to be working on something else now and have pages coming in. But I do kind of miss that thing where it's like there'd be something coming in from the artist and then something coming in from the colorist. But yeah, it was nice to see this daft idea I had, just taking the mickey out of a few things, become a full 6-issue miniseries, and actually my first as a writer, so that was quite nice as well.
Yeah, cool. That was something I wanted to ask about as well. So the first stuff I saw from you was all you as artist. So what inspired the transition to becoming the writer?
Practicality. So I have 2 children. One of whom is 6, one of whom is 2, and as soon as they came along, free time started disappearing very, 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 very quickly, and so the combination of factors. So a combination of having less time and a combination of getting a little bit bored of my art, because obviously I did Transrealities and Double D in quite quick succession, and that was something like 300 pages of comics, all in this quite clean style. Yeah. And I kind of didn't have time or space to experiment a bit. So I thought, I'll step back. I want to keep making comics. And the opportunity came up to write chalk for Comic House. So I thought, well, let's see how this goes. And got really into writing. And it's quite nice because it's something I'm still learning lots about. So that it's it uses different muscles. And then obviously it's got to the point now where I'm itching to draw something again. So that's quite nice. And doing a lot of experimenting in the background, and hopefully, if all goes to plan, once Christmas is out of the way, there is a one-shot I'm drawing that's written by my friend Howard David Ingham, who's this brilliant writer, and a folk horror expert. And And that'll be very different to what I've done before, because rather than using digital tools, I'm going to be going pen and ink, paper and messiness and mistakes.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Be looking out for that, no doubt. So I guess for you, the creative journey then, so you've gone from artist to writer, and before that, musician. Were you always working on art alongside doing music, or was it a kind of creative progression between the three?
I actually, so I started off with art. I always wanted to do comics art, and when I was little, I used to, people would buy me colouring books, and I'd just draw my own stuff on the inside covers. And so that was always like the big obsession. And then I had that beaten out of me by art college, which was a terrible traumatic experience.
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, they didn't like the idea of, there was a lot of snobbery about comics, and I found the whole experience really frustrating. And around about the same time, I was getting a bit obsessed with music. So music, just because of the opportunities that came my way, sort of took control for the first time. And a lot of it really just depends on what mood I'm in and what kind of what's going on at the time. So obviously I formed a band. We got signed to a little indie label, got the chance to tour and all that fun stuff. So it didn't leave a huge amount of time. But towards the end of that experience, I'd started taking a sketchbook with me and making notes and diarising everything. So the kind of drawing started coming back at that point. So when that band went pear-shaped, suddenly I found myself just with a bit more time and started getting back into it, and then posting stuff on Facebook, and getting drunk and meeting people, which led to doing stuff like Double D or the Islanders. So and then the art took over for a bit, and then again, like I said a second ago, it just depends on what's going on, and it's quite nice at the moment because I get to sort of dip in and out of each of them. I'm a terrible dabbler, awful dabbler. We're a bit like there's some new musical things I'm working on. There's some obviously the comic I'm hoping to be drawing fairly shortly, and then there's a couple of books I'm writing at the moment. So it looks like this year I've not put out a huge amount of new stuff, but it's mainly because it's working on stuff, and we'll kick in next year, a bit of luck.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you have to do the work for there to be work. So let's move on to that. So you've got upcoming projects. I spoke to you at Thought Bubble about some of them. Tell me and everybody else about upcoming projects from Steve Horry.
Okay, so there's two comics, graphic novels, if we're going to be specific. So one is Chalk, which is most of the Lizard Men team again. It was originally being put out as part of the Comic House anthology, and then Comic House they kind of moved to a lot more of the sort of one-shot format. So Pete asked us to pull that together as a book and finish the story off that way, and that's quite nice. It's allowed Katia and I to kind of remaster stuff, because there was an element of working it out as I was going along with the story, which I found out is not a way I'm comfortable writing. It turns out I'm a plotter rather than someone who likes to fly by the seat of their pants. So, and Katia wanted to change a few things in the art, so she's doing some tremendous stuff at the moment. So there'll be that, and Chalk is essentially Mike's sort of playground to play around with loads of British mythology that I've read about over decades. That kind of, and there's some daft stuff in there, and it's got to the point where there's too much, and I kind of want to have to pare it back and not throw everything in there. So so there's that, which is basically a kind of weird rom-com between an accidental immortal and the devil. Yeah, because of course it is. And then there's a Sleepy Time Village, which is completely different, which started off with the idea, what if life on Mars, but instead he woke up in the night garden.
Yeah.
Because have you ever seen In the Night Garden?
I have, yeah. It's an experience.
It's amazing. Obviously, every parent is reliant on CBeebies for specific situations, but yeah, In the Night Garden's mad. So and there's a new show from the creators called Moon and Me.
Yeah.
And there's a character called Collywobble who's like a clown.
Okay.
Like a cross between a clown and a 60s Cyberman. And absolutely terrifying. The kids love it. The kids absolutely adore it. It freaks me out, especially when Collywobble starts dancing and the little black hollow eyes are moving. So so it partly came from the whole Life on Mars thing, but also came from the whole imagine waking up in bed and you're next to Collywobble. That's the high concept, but then it's what's in terms of story, it's actually shaping up to be kind of, I guess, my attempt at writing something like It's a Wonderful Life or A Christmas Carol.
Okay.
It's that kind of because I didn't want to go down the obvious route of he's obviously dead, and it's all about this guy having to look at and reevaluate his life choices to work out how to get out of a terrifying kids' TV show that he's found himself in. Yeah,
that sounds really interesting. It's a good, bizarre concept, and I like that.
Whereas to me, it feels kind of normal. But the team that Ken Reynolds, who did the lettering for Lizard Men and is a writer in his own whatnot, is lettering and doing the is my editor, and he's dropping me quite hard at the moment. And then we've got an artist called Yulia Lapko, who is amazing. She's from Ukraine and she's drawing it faster than I can write it at the moment, which is a little upsetting, but in a good way. And then all the character designs. So I was stuck with the problem of how do you design characters that are going to appeal to a 5-year-old, but also be really freaky by adults. And then I realised that I have a 5-year-old, well now 6, but at the time she was 5, in my house, who designs lots of creepy characters that she seems to love and that terrify me.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrify me. So all the character designs are by Marnie Horry, my little 5-year-old, 6-year-old.
Cool. They just reworked kids' drawings into the new face of fear.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's kind of like the serpent eating its tail a little bit because, obviously she's done her original character designs and drawings and she's got really into it. And then we send those over to Yulia, and then Yulia does her interpretation, and then it comes back, and Marnie's absolutely obsessed with it. We did like because there's a lot of messing around with the form of kids books, and comics, and trying to make those different styles of art mesh. So we did like a 5-page proof of concept, and the amount of times I've had that read to me by my daughter is absurd now. She's really into it. After Thought Bubble, lots of people gave my daughter gifts, which was amazing. But Ken, because he works as a graphic designer / printers, made her some stickers of these characters, and they're everywhere, all over our house now.
That's really cool. That is really interesting, and it just seems really nice as well. As a kind of, it'll always be something that as a family you'll always have as a kind of, hey, remember this?
Yeah, I think it's nice that just getting her involved and making stuff. It's we've. I don't want to be the comics or music equivalent of a stage school dad, force her out into these things. But we've always had them both, drawing stuff and colouring stuff, and she's really run with it and really into the art and making stuff. So, and it's nice to see.
Yeah, nice. I have heard of other creators kind of getting ideas from the kids. I know Jeff Lemire talks about getting ideas for Thanos from his son, which is like super weird, but it's kind of nice that's obviously a kind of. I look back at like stuff I wrote down when I was a kid or drew and think, wow, I was either a genius as a child or a lunatic. And
or both.
Well, yeah, probably a little bit of both.
There was that Axe Cop, wasn't there? That's some guy and his really young brother.
And it's pretty good. So it does work in a kind of odd little way, but that's really cool. I like that. So those are the two big projects. Well, three projects, including the one you're drawing for.
Yes, and that Foxes, which is that's a folk horror piece, and obviously being horror, I don't want to spoiler it too much, but yeah, again, like I said, I'm going scrappy for that. Lots of proper ink and
that's
flaking all over the place. So
it's three quite different projects, really.
Actually, yeah. It's not like there's any sort of plan, or it's just this seems like a fun idea. Let's see where we go. Oh, okay, that's quite cool.
Yeah, which can be the best way to work sometimes. I think you've come between Lizard Man and Double D and Chalk. I think there's quite a lot of variety there.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, I think with the new projects as well, it seems like a real range of Steve Horry stuff.
It's really strange when you explain it to other people, and it seems a bit baffling. Whereas, I guess it's anyone with your kind of influences, the stuff that seems obvious to you doesn't necessarily seem obvious to other people.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you talked in Lizard Man in the kind of end of issue introduction. That's the word I'm running with. About kind of the influence of Britpop and things like that, and it knowing kind of who you are as a person. I think you can see that throughout the comics, and so I think sometimes your influences, I guess different people are going to spot different bits of influence and how you have worked your own personality into books. Yes, that is my view of Lizard Man. You're welcome.
Well, it wasn't sweary or offensive, so I'll take it.
You've said that you were always wanting to do art until art college beat that out of you. I feel you. What was it that got you into comics initially then?
So when I was a child, my dad gave me a load of a great big box worth of 70s and 80s Avengers comics and Marvel stuff. It was a lot of Avengers, mostly Marvel, a couple of DC bits, and that was where the original obsession came from. And it was quite hard to get hold of these things because we didn't have a local comic shop for ages.
Yeah.
And so it was my dad. I still whenever a new Marvel movie comes out, I take my dad. And we go and sit in. It's quite because it's kind of shared thing where both of us find it baffling that these characters that I liked when I was a kid, no one else liked, and now in these huge movies, like there's the fact that there was an Ant-Man, there's two Ant-Man movies, and they're both hits. It's like this is the this is quite a good timeline in places. So that was the main thing, and again, I guess when the band stuff took over. I sort of lapsed for a bit, I guess, from the mid-90s because, I think a lot of people who were buying stuff around the early 90s stopped. I mean, there was all that Marvel UK stuff that I remember being really exciting. And then I think I came back around about the mid-noughties because someone recommended Phonogram. And then that led to me buying all this other stuff that I'd missed and then getting obsessed all over again.
I mean, there were a lot of good books around the kind of Phonogram, what we're talking about, 2007, I guess? Thereabout.
Yeah, and then some stuff that I've really liked from when I was younger got reissued, and that had aged really, like, probably more to sort of 2010, I think, but like, there was finally a hardback reprint of Grant Morrison's Zenith.
Yeah.
Which I read at a formative age, and it was like, it's still one of my favourite comics ever. It says, if there's a fire in my house, obviously we'd make sure the kids were okay first, but that Zenith book and probably Gibson 345 would be under one arm each.
I think that's understandable. It's some good choices. Please, go on.
Sorry.
So go on.
No, I'm looking at my shelf now to see what else there was around about 2006 that dragged me back in.
Yeah.
But League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Someone bought me From Hell. I'm not sure when that was originally published when that was big, sort of like, whoa, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's a pretty serious look at what you can do with many, many pages of comics.
So dense.
It is. It's the kind of thing. So when I used to work in the comic book shop, it was like, this is like a murder weapon just waiting to happen. This is
well, the thing is, when I lapsed, it was all flipping big shoulder pads and belts and not drawing feet. So to go from that stuff to suddenly to all this, all this new stuff that seemed to chime with various interests I had, was quite exciting again. It was sort of like, oh, possibility, yay.
Yeah, I think it's true. I think between the early 90s and kind of the 2000s, there's quite a big development in what comics could be, and much more independent stuff and more variety, I guess, overall.
Yeah, I think it's probably more in the sort of US sort of side of things, and Europe and Japan, because they've always been much more. They're always historically much more varied in the kind of topics and stuff. But yeah, certainly the last sort of 15 years. God, it's been 15 years since 2000. Well, 13 years. That's close enough. Yeah, it's nice to see we're sort of catching up, and now you've got all this sort of kinds of crazy random stuff.
Yeah, it is one of those interesting things, because I've been to Spain a lot more and been into more Spanish comic book shops in the last couple of years, and it's the strangeness of, Europe have always been kind of, we don't just need superheroes, we've got absolutely everything. So it is interesting to see that the American market is catching up a little bit, and it's always, it seems weird that as the UK, we're so much more influenced by the American side of comics than the European side, even though that is closer to us, I guess. And
yeah, I mean, I guess apart from the sort of indie stuff where pretty much anything goes, and it's great for it. I find and this isn't a diss on superheroes. Obviously, person A punches person B through scenery C. I don't think I'd ever get bored of that. Preferably while quipping, obviously. But I do love it all. But it's nice to have that there's a place for all this other crazy stuff as well.
Yeah, that's true. So to kind of go back to, so you were talking about phonogram and Britpop and music in comics, which ties into some of the things you've worked on. So obviously the Double D was working with Image. How have you found the transition from kind of working with Image for your second, I guess, because Islanders and then Double D, right?
Yeah.
So how did you find the transition from kind of working with Image on Double D to then moving to Comic House and kind of kickstarting different projects and that kind of transition?
It's just completely. It's different. It's just because for me, because I've not written published work before. I felt I kind of needed to prove myself a bit rather than going with something like Image. So I didn't even think about pitching it to Image because I just thought I'm just too new. With Image, there's a lot of books coming out at any one time and a lot of creators that they need to sort of deal with. Whereas with Comic House, they had the anthology and they had that. So there was a lot of back and forth between Pete. But, one thing they both have in common is they kind of, when it comes to actually creating the book, they leave you to get on with it. Pete didn't, there was no editorial assistance. With Lizardmen, I got my own editor on board just to help me out and kick me out of the backside a bit because I just felt I wanted someone there to say, actually, that's a terrible idea, or help shape the bits of media. So yeah, in terms of the actual creative process, it's pretty similar. It's me in a room on my own.
Yeah.
So working with some other people who are also in different rooms in different places on their own, passing files to each other across the internet. I think with obviously Image has got massive reach, and they've got a bigger machine. So you stuff like prepping the files for print and all that Image do for you, whereas we did that ourselves. But yeah, in terms of the actual creative process, it didn't really change much. There was it was pretty similar.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Boring answer, isn't it?
Right, sometimes it's just it's the same. Yeah. So I guess tying into Image and things like that, the question of we've covered the titles that you're going to be releasing and progressing on in the next couple of years. Will we get a return to Double D or Trans Reality? Is there any of the comics that kind of had one installment?
Yes. So Trans Realities, I actually finished the art to a couple of years back. And that's going to be, I think Abby's going to be running a Kickstarter for that.
Okay.
As a full trade, rather than dribbling it out in issues, which is painful. She's going to run a Kickstarter to get it all finished and just get the whole thing out as one big, nice book. Yeah. And then Double D, every time I see Eddie, which isn't very often because obviously he lives in Berlin, but we talk about it, and he actually outlined about sort of what the equivalent of 20 issues worth of it when we did the original pitch. So it's outlined. It's just a case of both of us finding time to do it. And Art Brut had a new album out this year, just gone. Was it this year or was it last year?
This year, I think. Probably only
it was this year.
6 months ago, maybe.
Yeah. So he's been touring. That's been quite busy with that, and then he had to move house, and then there's all this other stuff. So we keep talking about it. It will happen.
Okay.
I just don't know when.
That's totally fair.
The will is there.
Yeah. It's two very busy people, so that's understandable.
I know, right? I know. But I'd like to think, we'd make a start on it next year, but then there was a point when I thought it'd be nice to make a start on this year.
Of course, it's tours and that,
I know, mate. Problems of working with what are they now? The classic rock band.
Yeah, that's right, apparently. Seems very true. So yeah, that's cool. Both titles that I've enjoyed, so I'm looking forward to seeing more of everything, I guess. One of the questions that I did have written down from a conversation we had a few years ago. So I believe I was promised a soundtrack to Double D.
Yes.
Well, come on, you guys can do that, right?
Well, the music's all written and has been. So essentially, about 6 months before the graphic novel came out, me and two friends went into a recording studio. We had no songs, no ideas or anything, no preconceived ideas. We just thought we'll go into a studio and record some stuff and see what comes out. Maybe we'll get one or two songs. We came out with 12 songs, 12 pieces of music, and so a whole album's worth. And it was all really good stuff, probably, I think. I liked it anyway. And then, I spent some time chopping it up and editing it and tidying it up. And because obviously we each song only got, each piece, let's say, only got a couple of takes. And then that was going to become the Double D album. But then we got, Eddie was hospitalised before finishing the comic. So there was this whole process. We were about 10 days away from the deadline. Eddie was in hospital and was on morphine, writing script pages and sending them out to me. So he's the only one of us who's been able to read Double D material that's been a surprise. Because he didn't remember writing the last chapter. And then I'm sort of frantically drawing for 11 days. But yeah, because of that, and then having to go into promoting the thing, we didn't get time to finish the album off. So I am doing some stuff with that material.
Okay.
So it will come out next year. It just won't be a Double D soundtrack because that boat has sailed.
Yeah, of course. It's a kind of delayed soundtrack.
I know, right?
A few years on, here's the promotional stuff.
Yeah, I could call it the Double D soundtrack, but it'd be a bit, it's gone.
Yeah.
Next thing.
I mean, if you've got 12 songs, you've got to do something with them.
No, I've got a track record of sometimes just writing this stuff and letting it sit on my hard drive, but we are actually doing something with those now, which is lovely.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Is there anything you'd like to talk about comics-wise?
What do you recommend me, Zach? You've worked in a comic shop, right? So you must know more about what's good this year than me.
There's been some really good comics this year, I think, and I'm sure you've had some recommended to you. I think Donny Cates struggles to do anything wrong this year. I think his kind of cosmic Marvel stuff has been really great. And you're into sci-fi, so I think that's your something you'd like. I mean, between like Cosmic Ghost Rider and then kind of Thanos and Guardians of the Galaxy, it's all been quite real ridiculous Marvel.
Yay!
It's a good recommendation. Also, Jeff Lemire just started doing a Joker series called Killer Smile, which is going to be 3 issues, I think. That's really good. And Stefan Sayek, I want to say, the guy who did Sunstone, is doing like Harley Quinn Origin. That's really, really good. There's a bunch of good indie stuff as well this year. I could talk for a long time if you want. But this was meant to be your interview. How about you? Have you anything you've been enjoying recently, or anything picked up?
Yeah, have you read Matt Fraction and I can't remember the name of the artist now. Matt Fraction's November.
I haven't, no.
That's quite good. It's the opening sort of chapter of that is one of the best bits of comics sort of storytelling I've seen in ages. That was really good. You said about Jeff Lemire, Sentient. It's bloody great.
Yeah, I picked it up the other day. I've not read all of it yet, but starts real good.
We there was obviously House and Powers of X was quite exciting.
Yeah.
For Comic House, there was they'd put out this graphic novel called 32 Kills by Mike Garley and Andy Clift.
Okay.
That was great. And called 32 Kills because there are 32 kills. Is it 32 kills? I think it's 32 kills. Anyway, but we started a vicious rumour that there was only 31 kills in it. But that was great. Read a lot of indie stuff. So Catherine Brooks's Triskelion.
Yes, yeah.
That is amazing. That's one of probably the best books I've read this year. It's just such a phenomenal piece of, like, the art is astounding. The story's great. Yeah. The way she messes with the form.
It is something I've been meaning to get the rest of.
She did a trade on Kickstarter and picked that up.
Okay.
It's fab, absolutely fab.
Yeah.
Loads of stuff. Been quite enjoying some of the Sandman universe stuff because obviously it's Sandman, so it's always quite nice to see some of that back. I
read Dan Waters' Lucifer the other day, probably a couple of days ago. That was real crazy, but
yeah. See, that's one I need to pull my finger out and read that one. Because he's a really nice guy as well.
I think I got into it. He was next to you at Thought Bubble, so I think it's because of you and Eddie that I kind of got onto Limbo. And so cheers, yeah. Him and Casper have both been really good in comics. There's a lot of good creators at the moment, especially kind of e-comics in the UK. I was at Thought Bubble. There was a lot of people. I was like, I'd forgotten that you like people like Ryan O'Sullivan and Wingard people. Many people who it's like I'd forgotten you were here and you were based in the UK, and yeah, you're quite prolific with. I guess everyone's been working hard, which is good.
Yeah, definitely. There's. I find it really hard to go to Thought Bubble and not spend a fortune. I picked up like a new Fraser Campbell book called House of Sweets. And he's always really, really good. And this is with Ian Laurie. He's fabulous. He's got really wonderful style. Hitsville UK.
Yes, really liked Hitsville.
That was great. I don't know,
it was something you recommended to me. I think when I first met you, or the second time I met you, I was looking for specifically comics about music, so I could write a research subject on that. So I think Hitsville and the Metroland from
Metroland ended awesome. I had a weird thing where I think I've worked out finally which character I am, because it's loosely based on some stuff that actually happened to.
Yeah.
Some stuff that I was around for, and I'm not sure if it's offensive or not. Ricky's a brilliant writer, and Julia Shields' art is always amazing.
Yeah, again, Thought Bubble is a place where it's kind of full of good, new, independent comics, and it is easy to lose all of your money in that, I think.
And listener, I did lose all my money, but who can put a price on happiness?
True, right? You can always have more books and less places to live because everything's full of books.
Yeah, it's fine. I've got my little study and it gets smaller every time because of the amount of stuff that's filling into it, but that's okay. I can get in and out. That's enough.
All that matters. Yeah, I imagine you're much the same as me, and every spare space in your house is full of books and musical instruments you don't need.
I've had to reduce it a little bit, but pretty much, because of obviously having to make room for kids' toys. So I've gone mostly digital on comics. So Comixology is my friend. Well, Comixology and the Comic House app, and especially if I'm buying single issues, I just don't have the space for hundreds of floppies. But so I tend to treat myself to a physical if it's something that's really nice art, or like Paper Girls, like the art and the colour and everything on that was so good that I had to have a printed version.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. It's just a really great series all through. And
or something like do you know the Adventures of Captain Cosmic? So it's Andy Clift, and it's like a real tribute to Silver Age comics. And I originally only bought it digitally, but when I saw the physical thing, it was so shiny and nice, and it just looked so good that I thought, I need this on my shelf. Need it.
Yeah, I think we all end up having those books that are like, I'm going to need to own this because it's the best. Unfortunately, there's too many comics that are kind of the best.
Yeah.
I think this is more or less everything I had to ask you about. We've covered your new projects. We've covered the all-important 4D soundtrack. So I think that's everything. Thank you for joining us, Steve.
Cheers for having me, mate.
Thank you for tuning in to Pull Our Pass After Dark. Once again, a huge thank you to Steve for chatting with me. If you've enjoyed this episode, please check out our weekly show on Fab Radio International, Mixcloud, Spotify, and all of the good streaming services. And for more updates, please head to our Facebook group, which is Pull Our Pass Radio Show, or our Twitter, which is @PullOurPass. I've been Zach. Thanks for listening.